What if God wasn't asking us to make resolutions this year? Think about it. We get to this point every year, and we have a list of resolutions that we tell ourselves that in the new year, we're going to implement. But more often than not, we start off strong, maybe a month or two, or even 3. And we find ourselves in the same place, dealing with the same hobbies, habits, and addictions. So what if this year we took a different approach? What if instead of going to God with our resolutions and telling him what we want to change, we took a different posture and we stood before him silent and allowed him to tell us what we need to change? You see, there are a lot of things in our life that we've struggled with that have taken root in our heart. And every single year we make the same resolutions. But every single year we find ourselves falling back into those same habits, those hobbies, and addictions. And maybe the reason is this, is that what we've allowed to root in our hearts has grown in our hearts. And instead of dealing with the root, we've only dealt with the surface. We've only dealt with what we visibly can see has grown. For example, every year, we might make a resolution that we're going to lose weight. And that's a great resolution. And we may even go and ask God, help me to keep this resolution to lose weight. But what if it was deeper than weight loss? What if weight loss was the visible struggle? What if the root was idolatry? Maybe every year you make a resolution to be free from porn addiction. And that's wonderful. But what if the root of your porn addiction was lust, was idolatry, was selfishness? You see, there are so many things that are deeply rooted into some of the struggles that we face. And so oftentimes all we deal with is what we can see. It's like a weed. Most of the time when we see a weed, we cut it down. But if we never dig out the root, that weed will eventually grow faster and stronger. And so this year, what if we took that posture where we allowed God to help us identify the root? And once he identified the root, we would put together an action plan on how to uproot those things that are sown in our heart so that we could truly be free. So here are 3 tips to help you into the new year. Number 1, allow God to help you identify the roots in your heart. Number 2, once you have allowed God to help you identify what those roots are, you need to get the proper equipment to uproot those things in your heart. See, just as a gardener, when there are weeds in their garden, there are specific tools that they use in order to uproot all of that weed. And so as believers, we have been given some tools by God to help us uproot those things that are in our hearts, those things that would cause us to continue to revert back to the same behaviors every single year. Those tools are his Spirit. Those tools are his word, the Bible. Those tools are fellowship. Those tools are different resources that focus in on the specific area that you may struggle with, or the roots that you have in your heart. See, God has given us some tools. So in order to start the uprooting process, we have to get the right tools. See, it does no good for you to know that you have roots in your heart and not get the proper tools to uproot those things in your life. And number 3, Start the uprooting process. Now, if there's one thing about a weed, is that, man, they are hard to uproot. Especially if they have been buried and growing for quite some time. Their roots reach so deep that sometimes it's difficult, if not in our own strength, impossible to pull those roots out. And so this journey, this process isn't going to happen in 1 month, in 2 months, in 3 months. It may take the entire year to uproot those things that are in our hearts, those things that would cause us to return to the same behaviors that we desire to change. And so know that it's going to be tough, but with the right tools and God's Spirit, we can uproot those things in our heart that would cause us to revert back to the same behaviors every single year. So if you want true freedom, if you want a true resolution, allow God to identify the root in your heart. Get the proper tools to uproot it. And know that God has given you His Spirit, His Word, fellowship, and resources. Resources can be anything. Those can be blogs, books, programs, shows, movies, conversations with friends, therapy. These are the tools that God has given us to help us to uproot those things in our life that would keep us bound to the same habits, to the same hobbies, to the same addictions, to the same things that keep us in a continuous cycle year after year. I pray this was an encouragement to you. And I pray that as the new year comes, that instead of going to God and telling Him what you want to change, you would stand before Him, silent, and listen to what He desires to change in you. God bless.